Hello my fellow gamers and welcome to my third gameplay improvements video. I'll be talking about gameplay upgrades that can be done to the game on its elements and mechanics that require some actual engineering from the Maxis team. So to start off, I will go with the roads and then continue on to specializations later on. The first problem with roads at the moment is because of the way sims do U-turns on intersections. In order to reduce the number of sims that use the intersections for U-turns, there should be a way to prevent sims from doing U-turns on intersections. What we could do is have an additional tool on the road tool, and we could use this to click on an already built avenue and create something that you already have in real life. Those are places for U-turns. This barrier between the lanes in the middle would be then disconnected. We would have a place for sims to do a U-turn without that place being an intersection. The second improvement is about zoning. There is a problem at the moment where you want to zone next to a coastline, but you can't really zone next to it because you first need a street to go parallel to the coast. And then you have to hit exactly the amount of space necessary for a home to be created. So as you can see, I am okay maybe to build something here, but definitely not here. So my street would have to be following the curvature of this coastline in order for me to be able to zone anything that can go up to medium or high density. So my improvement would be that no matter how much space I leave here, all of these homes could go to high and medium density because they would become beach property and would have a unique look that would give them a beachside property look, but they would be able to go up to medium or high density even though they might not have enough space compared to a regular grid. So we would have beach property buildings that could hold the same amount of sims, but only they would look a bit differently so that they could be fit into this space that might not be enough for a regular high density building. Another improvement to the road network would be having multiple leveled bridges. So for example, if I place this bridge like here, then I could, for example, build another bridge on top of this, but it would have an exit that would go to another side. So its exit would go somewhere like this. So I could have one entrance to this bridge, but have two exits. And that way I would be able to separate traffic without having an intersection right at the coastline. This could also help with having multiple types of transportation going through the same bridge. You could have a train bridge that goes underneath these car lanes that would be going into its own separate lane system once it hits the coast. And not only trains, but you could also have cars that would be going underneath these car lanes as well. So you could have bridges that have 3 levels and each level has its own type of transportation. Another improvement is considering the wind power plant. On some maps where you have a lot of water but not enough land, the wind power plant can take up a lot of space. So how about we start placing wind turbines on water? I mean, there are wind turbines on water in real life, and if there is a problem with them not being connected by a service road, you could come up with something like a service road that goes on water, but that is mostly just a line of buoys and not an actual road. And if the system where the turbines have to break down from time to time, even there on the water, you could make either small ships that would go out and repair them, or just repair them automatically after a certain amount of time, or make it so that the wind turbines that are on the water are not even going to break. The same system could be used for water pumping stations. Since they can take up a lot of space, we could do something like having these water pumps that are actually doing distillation of seawater. So you could plop them on the water and then they would be distilling salt water and creating drinkable water, and you could have them be on the water and not use up valuable land space. My next improvement is about the clinic and the police station. They're specific because they hold sims that are either criminals if they're in the police station, in the jails, or sick sims that are in the clinic. But what happens if you turn off any of these buildings? Well, the criminals get set loose while the sick people get kicked off to the curb. So there should be a system where if you want to close down or bulldoze a police station or a clinic, you can uncheck a box that says accept the sick, or in the police station's case, accept the criminals, and that way you could slowly get rid of criminals once they get re-educated and become prosperous Sims, and you could get rid of sick Sims once they are healed and they are off to the street. But in that time you would not be receiving any new Sims that are sick or that are criminals, and that way the jail cells or the clinic would become empty and you could just bulldoze them without having to kick sick Sims or criminals back on the street. There is a problem with education when you are using another city to educate kids in your city. In this case, if this city has a university and the city in the next plot is sending its kids to the university to be educated, once you load that city that is sending kids out to be educated, you are going to reset the education level, and then tomorrow they are going to go to school and they're going to come back as educated kids and so on. But once you leave that city and come back, education is again a blank slate. They have a reset because they have to again go to the other city to be educated. Now, to prevent this, there should be a system that says if a player is logging out, it should remember the percentage of Sims of kids that were educated that day, and then the next time you load the city, it loads with that data. It says, okay, you had 10% of your kids educated, now I'm going to give you a random 10% of kids that are educated and I'm just gonna place them into your buildings. So that way, the next time you load up the city, the game does not have to track each and every kid to see if it was educated or not. It just has to remember the certain percentage and turn that percentage of kids from kids to students, and those students will then turn those buildings from not educated to educated. There is also another problem with education. It's when you hit high density and you have 4, 5, 6,000 kids in your city, but it is so expensive to educate them all. So how about there is a system where if you don't have a university in your city, because universities need a lot of kids to be coming in to be able to be upgraded and to research faster. So if you do not have a university, make it so that after 3,000-4,000 kids there is a system of diminishing returns where every new home will make fewer and fewer kids, and that way you can have fewer kids that need to be educated. And you can explain this by saying, okay, well, some of my kids are homeschooled, so if I'm up to 6,000 kids, I should actually have only about 4,000 that need to be educated in schools, while the other 2,000 would be homeschooled, and therefore they would not be showing up on my overview. My next improvement is about transportation. I know that most of you have had this problem where bus stops don't have any sort of a system. So my system would be this. If you click on the bus stop, you get a small pop-up menu that gives you colors. You can have green, blue, yellow, red, 4 or 5 different colors. And when you click on a color, you get for example, you have clicked on the blue, now you have blue station number 1. When you place the number 1, the next becomes number 2. So this way you can have it color coded and have numbers of stations that a bus will have to follow. So once a bus gets out of the shuttle bus depot, it can simply randomly go around the city, and once it hits a certain color code, then it becomes a bus for that color code. So today that bus is going to be driving on the route that is that color code. So that bus can now go onto the blue color coded line, and once he hits the number 1 station, he will be then reset and he will have to follow the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and then 1 again. So in this way you could have, for example, the blue line that's going on the outermost edge of your city, and then, for example, when you click the next time, you choose the red and you put the red into the inside of your city. So now you have 2 different bus routes, one on the inside, one on the outside. Both have a few stations that are number coded and color coded, and tomorrow when the bus goes back to the shuttle bus depot, it can then again be reset so it can go to another bus line. This way you could combine the system that is already in the game, where buses go to the stations that have a lot of Sims already, but once they go to that station, they become attached to that color of the bus route. So if there's a lot of Sims on the blue routes, that means that a lot of these buses that are coming out of the shuttle bus depot will go straight for those stations, and once they hit those stations, they're gonna stay in the blue bus route for the entire day. That way you are combining the old system and the new system. Now, if there's enough buses on the blue route, the next bus that comes out of the shuttle bus depot will go to the stations that now have the most amount of sims that are not in buses. So that's the red colored bus route, because you already have several buses picking up sims on the blue color, and now those stations do not have that many sims. But now the red color goes up because the blue went down, and now all the buses are gonna go to the red color bus routes, and they're gonna be picking up sims there. So that way you have two systems working in tandem, and even though you have a part of the system that is random, it is going to go quite nicely with the part of the system which is not random. Another improvement to traffic would be about the municipal airport. Since the airport takes up a lot of space because of its runways, we could change it so that there is a mod that says helicopter pads. So instead of having a huge runway, you could have small helicopter pads that wouldn't be larger than this cargo terminal, and you could have, for example, 4 pads for the size of one of these cargo terminals, and then you could have helicopters that are coming in from the region without them having to be planes. You could also have something like balloon rides that would be attracting tourists from the region. For example, a tourist starts off from a balloon ride that comes from the neighboring city, he ends up in your city, he spends some time in your casinos, and then he goes back to the municipal airport, hops onto a helicopter, and goes back home. Now that I'm talking about transportation also needs to start creating profits, because all of these transportation, buses, streetcars, trains, boats, planes, they all cost you, but they do not bring in any cash. So Sims, and especially the tourists, need to start paying for their fares. Okay, we can say that Sims will pay, I don't know, let's say 2 simoleons per every bus ride, streetcar ride, train ride, boat ride, but the tourists should pay something like 10 simoleons per jet ride, or 5 simoleons per helicopter ride, or 5 simoleons for a cruise ship tax when they come into your city. And that way the transportation department doesn't really have to be creating profit for you, but at least you could reduce the expenses. Now I am getting to the specializations. The specializations at the moment can take quite a lot of space, especially because of the size of the storage lots. But how about we start creating storage lots that can go underground? So let's say I make a coal storage lot. My next coal storage lot should be able to go underneath the first one. And I could have something like 4 levels of coal storage that go down into the ground. They don't really have to be represented graphically. It is enough to have an arrow here that says going down 4 levels, or 4 arrows. Or you could have stars, for example, and then you have 0 stars if you have only the first level. Then you have 2 stars if you have 2 coal storage lots, one on the surface, one below it, and that way you could not only have 4 storage lots per trade depot, you could have 16. Another improvement is for garages. You could also have underground garages. For example, if you have a problem where you need to place a lot of garages for the recycling center, for example, there is 8 collection trucks, so now you have to place them one next to each other, and they will take up quite a lot of space. So how about we make this one garage actually an underground garage entrance, and then you just click on that building and upgrade it and pay each time to expand it. So all the space that it takes is the size of one garage, and that is the exit and entrance. But when you click on it, you can see just how many trucks you have underground. It also, just like the storage lots, doesn't really have to be graphically implemented. You don't even have to see it. You just know that below the ground you have a garage full of recycling trucks, and you could have the same system. You could have stars or arrows or just numbers that tell you how many extra trucks do you have in that underground garage. Or it could be built straight away to have the ability to support 16 trucks, but you have to pay for the trucks that are gonna be created inside. So a garage by default has enough place for 16 trucks, and you are simply then just paying the 3000 simoleons price for every 2 new trucks that you unlock for that garage. That way you would be taking up 8 times less space. Another problem with the current trade system is that when you have a trade HQ and it's upgraded in one city with, let's say, metals division, all you get unlocked for the second city are the storage lots. The second city does not actually get the trade port unlocked unless it has its own trade HQ. So not only should a trade HQ unlock these storage lots for the second city, it should also unlock the trade port itself for the other city, so that your new city does not actually have to build trade depots, earn enough money, build a trade HQ, and then be able to build a trade port. It should be able to build a trade port straight off. When it comes to the oil, as we all know, in real life there are oil deposits that are under the sea. So we should be able to do the same. We should get an offshore oil platform that we can plop, and we can then plop it somewhere over the water, and it can then be connected either by a thin bridge or just by boats, and then you would be drilling oil from the seabed. Another upgrade that I see feasible for improving traffic is about two sims getting into the same car. For example, if you have sims that are coming out of your home and they want to look for jobs, why should not two sims be able to sit in the same car, go around the city and hit a place where they can work, and they can both go into that building and work. Even if there isn't enough space for two sims, once the car with two sims enters the building, one sim can get a job and the second one can just get out of that building with his own car and then leave and find a job on his own. Every sim creates a car when he's exiting a structure, so that really shouldn't be a problem, but it would reduce the number of cars on the streets maybe up to 50%. The same could be done about taxis that are leaving the hotels. So if you have two sims that are leaving your hotel and they have both decided to leave your city, why shouldn't two of those sims that are tourists live inside the same taxi and then leave the city? If two sims are looking for a hotel, they can leave the casino at the same time in the same taxi and go into a hotel. And if there is room only for one of those tourists, the other one can do the same thing, just like the worker did, get into a taxi by himself and go to the next hotel down the line. That would also cut down on the number of taxis that are plaguing many major cities. And now for my last gameplay improvement idea for this video, and my gameplay improvement video series in total, is about industrial zones and about the industry in this game and trade. At the moment the game works in a way that commercial gets shipping from industrial whether you have industrial or you don't. They will just teleport goods at the start of a day into commercial, and that's it. You don't really have to be creating any goods and sending them to commercial. So how about we add to this system without taking away from it or changing it? How about this? You have industry. You have, for example, dirt industry. So how about this? In a city where you are producing oil, or you're extracting coal or ore, your dirt industry can get a shipment of ore, oil and coal, pay for it to you at the current global market price, you get the money, the coal mine has made a delivery, and now the industry has raw materials to create goods. Now the industry can still ship goods by the delivery trucks to the commercial, and that way we could close the loop on the trade system in this game. So you're producing raw goods, you send them to a factory, the factory creates goods for commercial and sends them to commercial. If you, for example, have medium tech industry, then the medium tech industry could be accepting goods that are, for example, plastic, fuel, metal, alloy. And the high tech industry could be accepting computers, processors and TVs. That way we could have a closed system inside the city where the industry is actually receiving materials in order to create goods, and then it can send those goods the same way it has been sending them to the commercial right now, either by delivery trucks or by teleportation. But in any event, the industry would actually be a part of your city. If you have trading already and you are exporting your goods to the region, you're earning money from exporting it to the region. But this way you could be selling your goods inside your city, and you would not be forced to deal with the traffic of exiting and entering your city and having problems with huge traffic jams that would be blocking your exports. You could simply have several factories next to your smelting factory, for example, and then they would be buying the metal or the alloy that you're producing, paying you the same prices that are on the global market, and you would be earning money without having to export to the region. Now, a side effect of this system would be that the prices on the global market would go up because you're now not exporting to the global market, and the global market would be in shortage of some goods. So the prices on the global market would go up. That way, successful mayors that do not have a problem with exporting goods to the global market would be earning more money, while the mayors who have a problem with traffic could still be able to earn money. And once the prices on the global market go up, we could have a system that would then adjust the prices of goods sold inside the city. So if you're selling to your factories, you would be getting, let's say, 90% of the price on the global market. If the global market prices go even higher, then the local factories would be paying 80%. If it goes even higher, the factories would be paying 70% of the global price. But that percentage could go only as low as the minimal prices on the global market that are there already, so that the cities would never be producing goods at a loss. They would be always able to create some profit. These two trade systems could operate side by side, allowing mayors who want industry in their cities to actually be doing something and creating something with goods that they are already producing, and there wouldn't even be a need for you to actually import goods for your factories, because factories already produce goods for commercial out of thin air. So my new system would be just added to the game as an extra system, and not a system that would be impeding the old system or changing it. These two systems would now be able to work side by side, and you could still have the old system where the industry is producing goods out of thin air and teleporting them to sea, or sea would be getting goods teleported without you even having industry. But also, if you do have industry and you do have production, you could be selling your goods to the factories. So that would be all for my line of SimCity gameplay improvements videos. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned on my channel for more.